Hello everybody and welcome to this edition of Inside Insurance. Today I'm delighted to have Michelle Byrne with me. Michelle is a director in our risk consulting practice and she's a technology risk specialist here with us at KPMG. She has over 10 years experience across industry and consulting, and she works across a broad range of sectors including financial services. Most recently she's spent quite a lot of her time advising clients on DORA in the insurance sector, and that's going to be the focus of our discussion today. So thanks, Michelle, for joining me today. And I suppose the topic today is DORA. You're a deep specialist, but many of us won't be as deep in the details. So would you be able to provide, I suppose, a brief overview of DORA?
Yeah.
To start with.
Thank you very much, Jean, for having me, and I would be delighted to. So DORA is the Digital Operation Resilience Act. It's been introduced by the European Union, under which financial entities, including insurance firms, must adopt this. It's going to be coming into force the 17th of January 2025. And I suppose the key tenets of DORA and why it has been brought in, it's to improve the overall operation resilience of the financial sector in Europe, while also reducing the risk of system-wide failures and protect the consumers and the broader economy there as well. The requirements of DORA have been published in a number of batches. So the first level 1 text, as we've been referring to it as, was released in December 2022 with 2 batches of regulatory technical standards which really provide the blueprint of how the level 1 text should be implemented, have been released for consultation in 2023, and since that time they've been released in final draft and continue to be released. So it really sets out a very clear guideline and framework of how digital operation resilience should be approached by organisations in the financial service sector. The implementation of the Act won't be entirely uniform across organisations. For pillar banks, there'll be a lot more detail and technical requirements required really to pan out how it impacts that kind of larger scale organisation. And then with smaller organisations, it's going to be considerably different for them. And that proportionality and risk-based approach really should be considered by organisations as they move through assessing DORA for their own needs of their own organisations.
Yeah, and you mentioned the text. There's obviously quite a lot of detail in them. And I suppose in the context of resilience more generally, I suppose what are the priority items that firms should really be focusing on right now?
Yeah, so firms should really be focusing on their important business services, their IBS, their critical business functions, their CBFs, and overall continuity. So through Operation Resilience, firms should have identified their important business services, and now through DORA, we're taking the lens of critical or important business functions. What organisations should really be doing is seeing how they overlap and seeing what you can use from your operation resilience journey to bring you through to your digital operation resilience journey, and seeing what can be used to leverage and mature your position there. Really the objective for implementing additional controls to ensure resilience is to allow organisations to prepare for, to respond and adapt, and to recover and learn from disruptive events. So the focus for firms right now is moving from completing your gap analysis, your review of the standards, into designing and remediating those activities and really embedding those processes in your organisation to make sure that you are prepared for January.
Okay, and there's obviously a lot to do, but there's a lot, I suppose, of other emerging risks in this space too. AI, for example, is getting a huge amount of coverage. I suppose, can you just summarise, I suppose, the other emerging risks in this area, and also maybe what firms can start to do to try and address all of those requirements in tandem?
Yeah, exactly. So you're right, there's a lot going on right now. It's a very busy time for organisations. So the EU AI Act, it's been highly anticipated, and it sets the global standard in relation to the use of AI. It's been that legislation has been formally adopted in May of this year, and it sets out a much clearer picture of what organisations need to do in that regard. Another kind of key aspects for board and executive management teams is the Data Act, which will come into force from September of 2025, and that really sets out how data will be shared, how it will be accessed, how it will be used, and how it will be protected. So it gives organisations a much higher level of comfort in that space. With all regulations, it enacts a lot of change within the organisation. So kind of bringing it back, I suppose, to DORA for a moment there. Within DORA, it's a huge piece of legislation. There's 64 articles, between 500 and 600 sub-articles. It requires a lot of effort to go through, and it's not just something that IT departments should be focusing on. It is multidisciplinary, and it's cross-organisational collaboration is required there. So a lot of organisations might not be taking that approach right now. They might be smaller with larger balance sheets. So you might be looking to get external support with that to make sure that you're at a level of compliance that you are happy with for your organisation, or more importantly, that your executive team is comfortable with for your organisation come January. I suppose with all of this, it just really highlights that there is a shift now, that organisations are becoming more technical, and that's based largely on a number of drivers. Your regulatory impacts, obviously, customer behaviours, legacy IT that's now changing and evolving. And with that, technology risk teams within organisations need to work more collaboratively with the business to identify your key risks and move and work together in that collaborative way to identify and respond and recover from quickly, and make sure that your organisation can withstand disruption, can withstand new legislation coming into force, and are able to report that sufficiently and give the right information to your senior level.
So you mentioned regulatory drivers there, and in a recent newsletter, the Central Bank would have had a piece around DORA, which I think focused largely on preparedness. For the benefit of the audience, would you mind just summarising some of the key messages from that article?
Yeah, absolutely. So the CBI, with support from the ESA, are currently conducting an exercise with a number of organisations who have opted in to collaborate on this in completing the Register of Information. So the Register of Information forms part of the ICT third-party risk management framework, and it really enables financial entities to identify the key risks in respect to contractual arrangements with their key IT third-party service providers. So what the CBI have been doing over the last number of months and into August and September is really assisting organisations with the expectation of what's required in completing the Register of Information. They'll take back this information, then they'll consolidate and review, and it'll allow a more collaborative approach between the CBI and organisations as we move into the next steps of DORA and how we might approach reviewing and monitoring DORA compliance in organisations going forward. So it's a really exciting piece. There'll be a lot of lessons learned. We'll be looking forward to hearing all of that and adapting and responding best, and how we'll organise, or how organisations will work with the CBI going forward to monitor DORA compliance.
Yeah. And finally, I suppose the implementation date, January 2025, not too far away. I suppose, what are the main expectations for January?
Yeah, so it's coming up really close now. So with that, the focus is shifting from completing your gap analysis to more design remediation activities and ongoing monitoring compliance, and really bringing digital operation resilience into a BAU format. So organisations for January 2025 should really be at a level of a minimum viable product in relation to alignment or compliance with DORA. It doesn't end in January 2025. It's going to be a kind of continuing thing that organisations will need to embed and mature and continue to strive towards being more resilient, more compliant with DORA, and finding better technologies and solutions to really meeting that level of alignment to the requirement. I suppose the focus for organisations taking that risk-based approach really comes back to the 5 key pillars of digital operation resilience. So looking at your ICT third-party service providers, ICT risk management, information and intelligence sharing, incident reporting, and resilience testing. And once organisations get to a level of comfort there, and that's agreed by the senior board and senior management teams, then I think they'll be in a good position to really kind of start the journey from January 2025 and become a more resilient organisation.
Okay, lots to do.
Lots to do.
Yeah, and I suppose we've covered an awful lot of detail today, and I suppose if there was one or two key things to take away for the audience today, what would that be?
Yeah, so I think with complying with DORA, it presents a lot of complex challenges for a firm, but it also offers significant opportunities for increasing the confidence in a firm from your investors, your customers, the general public as well. And it will help firms have that competitive edge if they are able to be resilient through a disruptive event. Compliance will give firms an improved ability to prevent, to detect, to respond to ICT-related threats and incidents, which will ultimately help the firms become more resilient.
Well, thanks very much for your time today, Michelle. It's a pleasure having you here with us today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. If any of the topics resonated with you today, please feel free to contact Michelle, myself, or usual KPMG contact. So thanks for joining, and we look forward to welcoming you again on another issue of Inside Insurance.